My name is Tarteel. I am a Sudanese writer, activist, and someone who is a big advocate for the importance of sharing your stories and connecting with those around you. One thing that I want to start off with before sharing my story with you today is that it's important that you become the kind of person that your younger self needed. This story that I'm going to share with you today began in 2004 when I left my home country, Sudan, to move to the United States. I was 8 years old, going to fourth grade, not foreseeing that my experience in the US would be nothing like what I'd known in Sudan up till that point. To paint you a picture of Sudan, and particularly of my hometown in Durban, it's a very vibrant community. I want you to imagine a community where everyone knows one another, where your family is not just your nuclear family, but it's your grandmothers, it's your neighbors, it's the man that sells things besides the store, it's your teachers. I come from a very communal society. I was always surrounded by family, teachers, and friends, neighbors visiting one another, bringing biscuits and warm tea. Your home door was never closed. It was always open for visitors. And family to me was also a part of my school life. My teachers were an extension of my family. School was one of my favorite parts of my life growing up. I was a very dedicated student. I always had the top scores, the top grades, and my school would hold quarterly celebrations where I would bring my grandmother, Haboba Suliya, along with me, and I would receive rewards and recognitions for my performances. I had extremely high self-confidence when it came to my grades. I was loved by my teachers. I had strong relationship with my peers. However, all that changed when I came in 2004 to the United States and began fourth grade in Mrs. Kate's class. All of a sudden, I went from being surrounded by a community to feeling isolated. I was different than those who were other students around me. I went to a primarily all-white school, and my language and my skin color were both barriers. I didn't speak English at the time, and it was difficult making friends when you don't know the language. My teacher was visibly showing her frustration with me in the first weeks because she had no experience working with ESL students, those from diverse backgrounds, and it was quickly obvious to me that although I couldn't understand the words she was using, I was understanding her body language, and I could see the way that I was simply a hindrance to the success of her classroom. Whenever the teacher would have school activities, I was set aside in a corner to just do my own little activity because it was too difficult for her to incorporate me in group activities. If you can imagine, when you're 8 years old, all you want to do is belong. You just want to feel like you're a part of something bigger than you. You miss being a part of having a friendship group, having people around you who bring you in. I began to feel like an outsider looking in. And all I could think to myself was, how did I go from being the top of the class to now being perceived as this dumb black immigrant student to having no friends? I would go home every day crying to my parents, telling them I want to go back to Sudan. This country does not accept me. My teacher, I can see the way that she treats me. It's of a student who is not smart enough, someone who is not capable, and someone who's never going to accomplish anything. I slowly but surely began to lose that self-confidence that I always had, that love that I had for school, and I began to be extremely depressed at that age. At the time, 2 months into school, my teacher set a meeting with my parents and the principal. In that meeting, she had explained that I'm no longer a student that is fit to be in her classroom, and she told my parents that they need to take me back a grade. If you can imagine, that did wonders to my self-confidence. all of a sudden, I was like, this is the sign that I needed. We gotta pack it up and go home. Because, what do you mean go back to grade? Like, do you know why I'm in Sudan? I was at the top of the class. To be honest, at that time, that to me was the worst thing that could have happened. But looking back at it now, I think that that moment sent me on the trajectory that I was supposed to be on all along. I ended up moving back to third grade into Miss Brown's class. She was a black teacher who actually had experience working with ESL students. And the minute I entered her classroom, I felt immediate warmth and love and acceptance. She didn't try to strip me away from my identity or from my Arabic language, but rather, she began extending her kindness and humanity. She would work alongside me one-on-one after school, offering me the resources that I needed in order to succeed. In that moment, something clicked in my mind. It wasn't that I was dumb. I just was never offered the resources that I needed as a second language learner. She told me to journal daily, to write things down and use, at the time I was very big on art and I still am. And she told me to incorporate my love for creativity and my love to express myself, both through words and pictures. Through our one-on-one lessons together, I began to actually love writing, a habit that I have till this day where I would journal daily. And I have 10 journals all the way from 2004 up till now, that if it hadn't been for my teacher, I never would have grown that love for writing that I do. A few months into the school year, I began to pick up the English language, as kids do when they are given that support and motivation. I went to learn English and not only learn it and begin to love it, but I actually went and pursued my undergrad in English literature. And through doing that made me realize that I wanted to be the kind of person that my younger self needed. I wanted to go into education and be that teacher that's a safe space. I began teaching English to 3rd and 4th graders in the US. I then moved abroad to Thailand and taught English there for a year. And I realized that connecting with second language learners is truly my passion. After coming back to the United States, I pursued my master's in teaching English as a second language. And through my education work, I shifted into advocacy because I realized that being a teacher is advocating for your students, especially in the United States, where, as many of you know, teachers are often not given the proper resources needed. And to me, it was just such a stark reminder that each and every one of us, the challenges that we face, the obstacles we face along the way, they play a pivotal role in making us who we are today. So take those things and become the kind of person that your younger self needed. Offer the compassion that you once longed for, the guidance that you sought, and the courage that you didn't know you had. And this journey of breaking cycles of silence and fear, it allows the next generation to have a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is light. And it is founded in resilience, empathy, and in truth. Thank you.